Thanks y'all for being here today. We are very lucky to have this group of students to talk to us about what they really do experience on this campus. And I know that some of you are first-time teachers starting next week. Some of you are seasoned. Either way, you've interacted with students on a regular basis, no doubt. However, how often do we get the opportunity to hear what they really have to say in a very non-threatening environment when they don't have the threat of a grade hanging over their heads? They can speak freely and clearly, and we want to give them a voice. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce everyone, and what we'll do is I have a series of questions to ask. We'll just kind of go down the row and ask the questions. Towards the end of the session, I'd like to open it up for questions and answers so that you all can ask what's in your heart. So directly to my right, we have Alex Bird. Alex is a senior. She's a journalism, news, and editorial writing major, and after graduation, she wants to be a magazine journalist. Next, we have Jamie Lamb. She's a freshman. She's a business major, and she'd like to go to graduate school after finishing her undergrad education. Next, we have Kate Lester. She's a non-traditional senior. Her major is geography. She would like to get a master's in geography and a PhD in environmental science and work for some sort of governmental agency after she finishes up. Next, we have Nikolai. Nope, we don't. We have Ben next. Ben Johnson. Sorry, Ben. He's a junior philosophy major, and he plans to attend graduate school and work in higher education as a professor afterwards. Then we have Nikolai Linear. He's a freshman, visual arts studies, and he plans to be a practicing artist, though I bet he's already practicing some as we speak. Last but not least, we have Erica Lindquist, who is a junior in fashion design. She wants to be a fashion illustrator, designer, and eventually a small business owner. So, Alex, let's start with you. What is your biggest motivation for showing up to class?
I would say my biggest motivation, besides just, getting my grade, would be just to learn more how to, be a great journalist. I'm really passionate about it. I think passion motivates me the most.
All right, Jamie, how about you? What's your biggest motivation for showing up to class?
Well, I actually really enjoy school, and it really helps because I really like my teachers as well.
Oh, nice. All right. Can we get some applause for that one? All right, next, Kate.
All right, well, I am a non-traditional student. I've done it the wrong way several times, I've done it the right way a couple of times. And I know that if I go to school, if I go to class, if I go to every single class, it's going to pay off for me. I'm not going to have to study really hard at the end. I'm not going to have to try to cram anything. And so even though it's not necessarily a joyful experience for me every day, like some people perhaps, but I know that it gets the results that I want, so.
All right, thank you. Ben.
Yeah, for me, I would say it probably depends on the class. In classes I really enjoy, I just go because I actually enjoy learning the new information. But in those classes where I just really don't want to be there, usually it's pop quizzes. That's what gets me going.
Okay, fair enough. Nikolai, how about for you?
Okay, so probably the biggest motivator for me, I always look at going to class as just that next step towards my future goals. So that's probably the biggest motivator. It's also really encouraging if the environment in the classroom is really positive. If I know that I have a professor or a TA or someone who's there that's going to encourage me, that's also another motivation.
So speaking of positive, what do they need to do to show you a positive learning environment?
Well, for example, this past semester I took drawing, and I'm not a very confident drawer. That's not necessarily the medium I normally work with. But my TA was really, really good at just encouraging, and you would make mistakes, but she would be there to help you correct them in a positive way, and she wasn't very critical. And that just kept making me want to go back to the class. So.
Excellent, okay. So feedback is important.
Yeah.
Erica, what's your biggest motivator?
I think my biggest motivator is really similar to Alex's. It's the passion towards the subject, how much drive I have towards the thing that I'm trying to learn. So for me, it's fashion design. So my fashion design classes are really important to me, and I'm very passionate about the work that I do in there. And every single class has something due. So I want to be there for every single class. Other classes, my motivation is basically the grade and making sure I have my attendance is there, because most of the classes take attendance. But I wish I had more motivation than that for those classes, but some of those classes are core classes. And for me, I enjoy learning in those core classes, I do, but most of the time they're in the morning, and I'm not much of a morning person, I'm sorry, but so it's really hard to be motivated when they're morning classes, but I really try to work on it, so yeah.
So, Erica, this question is for you. What do you do to prepare for your classes, even the ones that you, maybe especially the ones that you don't really get turned on by?
Yeah, the way I prepare for the classes that I am not as motivated to go to, I usually try to tell myself that this is a class that is going to, it's a part of my degree, it's a part of my learning experience here, it's a part of the grades that I get, and I know I'm going to learn something from those classes. And also the teachers there they're putting so much effort and so much work into it, and for me to take advantage of them like that, it kills me inside. So I guess that's somewhat of a motivation as well. So the way I prepare myself for going to those classes would be to remind myself of why I'm there, and you know, and the usual studying and reading and stuff like that. And then fashion design is more project oriented, so preparing for those classes is more just doing the projects and doing them well.
Would you say that you have an easier time learning when you have that type of experiential learning?
Yes, I'm definitely a very hands-on kinesthetic learner. I'm not very visual or auditory. So.
Okay. Nikolai, how do you prepare for class?
Okay, so I try to be a good student. I do the typical things. I study quite a bit. The material, if we have a discussion going on and I know that beforehand, I try to think of some kind of thought-provoking things to get that going before class. One of the big things, I'll read textbooks, but on that same note, one of the most helpful things is whenever a teacher tells me, like straight up at the beginning of a course, whether or not we're going to use the textbook and if we need to actually read it. Because there were several classes that this past semester that we bought the textbook and had the textbook, and it was never stressed to read it, and because of that I didn't, and you know, there came up things that I probably should have read it. So just a reminder from the teacher or the professor to read the textbook is always kind of nice.
Okay, very good. How about you, Ben?
Well, I guess for me, again, it's kind of a dichotomous answer. In classes that I have time to prepare a lot for, usually I just do the reading, because in philosophy, mostly all we have to prepare for is just like doing like 20 pages of reading before class or something. But so usually it's just doing the reading, but on days where I just don't have enough time, I'll usually like Wikipedia the philosopher or something in question. So
That's very honest of you. Kate, how about for you?
For me, I treat school like my job. And so every day I am up and I am working. I'm a bit of a type A personality, so I not only have an online calendar, I also have a hard copy calendar. They're both color-coded. And I schedule everything. I schedule reading, I schedule when I'm going to copy my notes, I schedule when I'm going to recopy my notes. And for me, part of really being prepared is constantly being involved in what I do and being involved with my professors, and I constantly have someone breathing down my neck. And that's very helpful for me. So really for me, it's mostly showing up, and then I'll get it done.
So what about in the classes where your professors are not as prepared as you clearly are for everything? How do you feel about that?
Oh, that's all right. I mean, I figure as long as I'm doing my best, then it's going to be just fine. Because really my goal is, my goal is not to make straight 4.0 because that's what I want. My goal is to try to learn as much as I can from the classes, because there's a reason I'm in that class. There's a reason that I want to know what I'm being taught. And so if I prepare, if I do all my reading, if I'm up on it, and then, the discussion lags or the test is way easier than I thought it was or whatever, that's great. That's wonderful. And I have really at UNT had very little experience with professors and TAs and everything who weren't willing to meet me where I'm at. So,
All right, nice. Jamie, how do you best prepare for class?
Well, I do my homework like the night before, and I usually don't have very much time in between classes because I schedule them one on top of the other. I take notes, so I skim through them usually at first, but I was really lucky this past semester, and I had teachers who, in the beginning of class, they would usually go over what we went over last class and help get us back into the mindset of what subject we were learning.
So a review at the beginning of class is very useful for you.
Very useful.
Okay. Alex, how about you? How do you prepare?
Okay, well, I'm not really talking to the microphone. I guess the best way to prepare for class would be just to review myself. Just to be thinking about what we may be going over. I really appreciate PowerPoints. Professors that prepare a PowerPoint for us to have. Some may think that, doing that may deter people from actually attending because you have everything in front of you. But it's really a good tool, just to be prepared before the class so you're already thinking about it so that you can just dive in instead of having to over-explain what you may be talking about. So that helps me a lot.
So this question is for you too, Alex. What is the biggest challenge you face in school?
I think just staying attentive and keeping your eye on the prize, so to speak. As cliche as it is, it's good to, especially for classes that you may not be interested in, especially, journalism is very specific, and I have 2 minors, so I've had to study everything, all different types of topics and stuff. So I think just being keeping your eyes on your ultimate goal of graduating, which I'm doing in May, so I'm there.
Congratulations.
So, yeah.
It's wonderful. Jamie, what's your biggest challenge in school?
Probably finals week. Whenever I have 5 different finals in about 3 days. So
Is it the preparation for the finals that's the
Yes.
issue, or the actual taking of them and the anxiety it causes?
both. Yeah, the teachers, my teachers that I had this past semester did a very great job in preparing all the students for their finals, whether they took the information or not. But I think, a day or 2 before the finals, taking, time to explain the key subjects that will be on the final would be really helpful.
Okay, so a good solid review. All right, Kate, how about for you? What's your biggest challenge?
I think for me the biggest challenge is if I'm gonna keep up with something, it's endurance, okay? If I get a little bit behind, all of a sudden it can feel very overwhelming very, very quickly. And so my biggest challenge is making sure that that doesn't happen, and if it does, being able to actually either ask for help or figure out a different way to go about it. And that isn't an easy thing, I think, for most students. And talking to a lot of my peers, a lot of them are terrified to talk to you, much less, ask for help. And so I think for me, that's a challenge that I've been working on, that I've gotten a lot better at, but I think it's a much larger challenge that, I'm not sure what to do about, but it's definitely out there.
Ben, do you have any challenges?
Yeah, I would say my biggest challenge is probably procrastination. I am a huge procrastinator, so like I'll wait until the night before to write a 9-page essay or something like that. It's crazy. I know, it's awful. But so like for me, something that really helps with that is especially for essay writing, because that's mostly like those are the brunt of the assignments for my major. It's mostly just essays and reading. And so what helps me is like when professors give outlines or what are they called? Rough drafts, like assigned earlier than the final assignment, because I can actually kind of get started and have not exactly necessarily a grade, but at least something to work for. Yeah.
Okay, so you need some little mini assignments in
Yeah.
between to keep you on
I think
track.
it's really, really helpful.
Yeah, okay. Nikolai, how about you?
Okay, so I think, and it's pretty much what's been mentioned. I think the biggest challenge is just keeping up with it all. Just you know, you come to college and it's like it becomes your life, and so you know, every morning you wake up and it's all day long, just going, scheduling everything, trying to keep up with it all. I think, especially like during those times in the semester where all of your classes kind of coincide as far as, you know, heavy workloads, there'll be like, you know, 5 or 6 projects due in 1 week. That's probably the biggest challenge. And I know, I mean, the professors and teachers can't necessarily coordinate that, but that is one of the biggest stressors is whenever I have a really heavy week.
So you'd like them to understand that even if they can't do anything about it?
Even if, I mean, I know they can't do anything about it, but it is nice whenever they recognize like, oh, I see that you're really, really stressed out because, you know, and then I can be like, yeah, I have like 8 projects due. So. But
Hopefully that'll get better in your academic career.
Hopefully.
For you. All right, Erica.
My biggest challenge is very similar to Ben's, procrastination. I am just as bad as Ben, except my projects require a lot more of physical labor. So, and physical labor takes some more time than just one night. So usually they give us about 2 weeks to a month to work on a project, which is really good for fashion design because we have multiple projects going on at once. So if we can work on all these multiple projects at once, and they give us checkpoints and everything. So it's really great what they have going on in the program right now. So really the challenge is more what I'm doing to myself, creating stress for myself because I wait until the last minute for each checkpoint, which makes it a lot less stressful because then they don't give me just that one due date. And that's a big problem, is if you give them just one due date and they're having, you know, those people who aren't necessarily the most organized or good at time management, it doesn't really help them along, you know, help them figure out where they're going. Because, I mean, that's your job as a teacher, is to teach them not only the subject, but to teach them how to manage their time and how to organize it and how to study the correct way. Because if you don't, they're not gonna, you know, they're not gonna know what they're doing. They're gonna fail, and then what's the point of them coming to school? You know, they failed. And yes, there's a lot of responsibility on them, but there's also responsibility on you too to help them along and you know, mentor them individually and as a group, and to make sure that they have those checkpoints before the very final huge finished product.
Excellent, thank you. So this is probably my favorite question. What is the one thing you could really do without in your education? Let's start with you, Erica.
The one thing I could do without in my education?
It's not a trick question.
I know. I can't really think of anything, to be honest.
Okay, great.
I've had a pretty good experience so far. I guess, well, maybe the trouble with financial aid sometimes.
Okay.
But that's not necessarily on y'all. Y'all don't have to worry about that. Yeah, actually, y'all probably worry about it as much as I do, so.
Still a part of your education, though, and something that needs to be talked about.
this is true.
so.
This is true.
Nikolai, what about you?
I feel like this is a trick question.
I promise it's not.
Okay. Well, my answer is really, really biased, and it's just part of my personality, but I am like a hater of all things technology-based. I don't even like cell phones, so like Blackboard's fine. I like Blackboard to some degree because it's manageable, and you can look at your grades and things like that. But whenever like teachers get technology crazy and they decide to like, you know, we're gonna use our iPads to do things now, I don't know what that is. I don't know. So those are, I guess that's something that if I ever am in a situation where the teacher relies really strongly on technology to teach the course, I have more trouble understanding, you know, how to access the material, how to teach it to myself. It's easier when it's just in print. But
I
that's
really
just me.
appreciate that feedback because many of us are under the impression that students want more and more technology infused into the curriculum. So it's good to hear that that's not always true. So, Ben, how about for you?
I guess actually mine is probably related to Nikolai's, in that I would say it's not necessarily something I would do without, but something I would do with, which is better life integration. Like, I want my education to be very fused with what I do in my real life. So when classes have like technological aspects to the class, like say my language lab or something, if they're not really well integrated and easy to access, or if they're not simple and kind of unified, then it's really difficult. So like, for instance, Blackboard is pretty easy to access and it's pretty simple, but when you have teachers each having their individual program that they use online or something like that, it gets out of hand. And also like relating discussions into like real life and stuff like that. So it's kind of an all-around thing.
Okay, Kate, what could you do without?
I could do without group projects. I hate them. I'm not gonna lie.
I agree.
You know, I mean, every once in a while it's okay, but I've had classes where almost every project was a group project, and I've already told you about how I am a obsessive organizer, and I am always, you know, in way advance of everything that I'm doing, and I'm planning way far ahead, and I worked in a supervisory role for many years with college-age students, which just made it even more like, I don't want to be the boss, I don't want to be bossy, but it's very difficult for me, and you know, group projects for me will take me 5 times longer than if you just let me do the whole thing by myself. And I understand that there's some value there, but if you're relying on it, sometimes, I'm going to be honest, I feel like sometimes people rely on it so they don't have to grade as many projects. And I am not okay with that. So that's what I could do without.
All right, thanks, Kate. Jamie, what about you? What could you do without?
A lot like Ben, I could do without so many technological places to go to. Like, I had this one professor last semester, and he had his own website and another website where we could go to get notes on the class, and I would much rather have had him put it all on Blackboard on his little
Course
page.
shell, yeah.
Yes, so that is what I could do without.
So ease of use, it
Yes.
sounds like. Okay, Alex, what could you do without?
Okay, similar to Kate, just less group work, or if it is group work, because it is necessary to be able to interact with people in a very productive manner. So I definitely understand that, but maybe in a more applicable way, something that would actually happen, you know, in the workforce or whatever. Just pulling from my major, journalism, like maybe we're actually working towards a news story or doing different parts, you know, different components towards that instead of some floaty, you know, just work, just schoolwork type of thing, if that makes sense. Just something that we can use like later in life, like applicable, I think is the emphasis.
You want your education to be relevant to your life, you mean?
Yeah.
All right, we'll do one more question before we open it up for Q&A. I think what we'll talk about is what educational experience has had the greatest impact on you as a person, Alex, and I'm talking about from kindergarten till now.
Okay. Just when any teacher, like growing up, obviously my English teachers and any writing professor or that sort of thing have been really motivating when they actually like to talk about my writing and about my craft and about, just genuinely helping me. Being a mentor is really special to students. Actually feeling, more than just a number or just, a student that you're, grading. I think that has been the biggest impact. I can tell you, specifically which teachers, like Mrs. Gardner, my junior year, really helped me actually feel important, and she wanted to keep my papers and all of this stuff, and it just made me feel very special. Kathy Hennon, a journalism teacher, she would say that I was just very inspiring with my writing, and that really touched me. I think that would be the biggest impacts educationally speaking.
So affirmation is an important thing to you. Okay. Jamie, what about for you?
Well, in high school, I took a lot of difficult classes to prepare me for college, and I really liked how teachers would challenge me, but they wouldn't do it in a critical manner. They would encourage us all at the same time and work with us, and come by each individual and ask, what can I do to help, and I know it's hard to do that in a classroom full of 200 kids, of course, but I think it would be helpful to offer, if anyone needs any individual help or, a TA that would be willing to help each kid.
So you think individual attention could help students be a lot more successful?
Oh, yes.
Okay, all right. Kate?
Well, I'm going to have to agree with these other two. I think at a school this big, at any school really, but a school this big in particular, it's very, very easy to feel like my job as a student is to keep my head down and keep quiet, and that no one's interested in how I'm different or how I'm special or how I got to this point. And, if you do find that, if you manage to find people, to talk to people, to break that, what I was saying, that fear of talking to, all of you and to professors and everybody, if you can find that kind of support network, it makes a huge difference. You can take your own education into your hands, and if you're a high achiever, maybe you can go higher, and if you're not doing so well, maybe you can figure out why. And so for me, this has been very, very important to me, that I'm no longer just going through the motions to try to get a piece of paper so that I can move on with the rest of my life, whatever that means.
Okay, great. Thank you. Ben?
I think this kind of goes hand in hand with what the former students said, or previous students, I guess. But my third grade year, I wasn't really learning much of anything, right? I was sitting in the back of the classroom, and I was sitting next to the bookshelf reading books because my teacher just didn't really teach anything interesting or engage me at all. And my mom found out about this, and so she had a conference with my teacher, and my teacher said, well, I can't really do anything about it. I can only teach to the middle and hope that the top and bottom get something. And so at that point, my mom was like, well, just keep sitting at the back of the classroom, keep reading then. And so she supplied me with just bundles of books, right, in class. And so I guess that was probably the defining point in my education, where I became interested in learning and really enjoyed learning, but became completely disenfranchised with school. And so I think that it's really important that teachers understand that connectedness with their students, and understand that students need individual attention and not just teaching to the middle or something.
And go mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Nikolai.
Okay, so I'm hoping this is relevant. I would say, as far as most profound educational experience thus far, really, this first semester in college was fantastic. I've really, really enjoyed it, and like, I don't know, just recognizing that it is an exciting thing, that it is like a new kind of, step towards growing up. I've had like a really, really blessed semester, and I've been able to see how, like, preparation in high school, how my teachers really prepared me very well for college, almost to the point where college is, I mean, it's not a piece of cake, but it's easier than I expected. You go into it, you think it's going to be killer, but it's really not. And then another thing that has been really, it's been a blessing to me, has been, I guess, the extracurricular activities that college is able to offer. I know, like, getting involved in clubs and organizations and things has been really, really awesome, and that has actually helped with my academic side of things. Being engaged and connected with other students helps motivate me to stay on campus and stay learning and, get it done, kind of thing. So, I don't know.
Great, thank you. Erica, what has been the greatest impact on you?
The greatest impact on me has been how, basically, like, how the teachers have worked with me one-on-one. So similar to some of these other answers is, although I've actually gotten the individual attention because I'm an art major and a design major, and typically in the art program it's a lot easier to give them individual attention when you only have a class of 20, and so I'm used to that. I'm used to speaking to the teacher one-on-one every single class and getting individual feedback on every single one of my projects, and this is what you should do, and I would suggest this, and it's been a really, really, really great experience for me because I've gotten opinions from really good fashion design teachers who've been in the field and understand it and know what they're doing. And so my thing is that if you have a larger class and you feel like it's tougher to give that individual attention, make sure that the students know that you're willing to meet with them. You have office hours and they have the opportunity to talk to you. Make yourself open to them. Don't, hide from them or, because even though you're in front of the class, you can still hide from them after the class is over. You can go into your little office and shut the door and no one will ever talk to you. And maybe that's what you want, but that's really not the best thing for talking to your students and making sure that they're learning what they need to be learning. Really, the one-on-one attention is really good.
So it sounds to me like collectively, engagement, individual attention, and relevance are what's really important in your educations. Would you agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Well, let's open it up for questions. We've got about 8 minutes left.
Related to a number of comments you made, one of the things I've done in all the years I've been teaching is a lot of students would rather die than come do the office hours. And the professors because they're intimidating or whatever. In art and design school, it's a really intimate relationship with your students all the way through. When I teach a large lecture class, lots of the students could never come. So what can a professor or a TF do to make students more comfortable about coming to office hours? And how many of you actually go to your professor once a semester or whatever, or ask for help?
Anybody have an answer for that?
Okay, well, I can say that I hang out with my professors a lot. But I will say that the first time I ever went and talked to a professor at their office hours really was last semester. And I was actually in Dr. Opong's class. And the class was so interesting, and I felt so supported in that class that I had an idea about something that we had been talking about, and I had to psych myself up about it for about 2 weeks. All right? Mm-hmm. He's so scary, right? He's so scary. I had to psych myself up about it for about 2 weeks. And I finally went in and I talked to him a little bit, and guess what? He didn't yell at me about having an idea. And, he encouraged me. And after that, it was just that one meeting, and then after that, it was like this whole barrier had broken down. And now, I talk to most of the professors in my department, and I'll go in and talk to them, but really, I don't know what the secret is to getting someone to come in and talk to you. Some people are extroverts, I am not. I am a huge introvert. And for me, I think it just took knowing that there was that support, that kind of safe space, and that he had been reading what I was doing and thought that I had been doing well, and that there was already sort of that relationship there a little bit.
So the fact that he didn't bite, yell, scream, kick, or scratch
Not
was,
the first
was
time.
pretty good. Okay, well, keep that under control, Dr. Opong.
Honestly, also I would say, to add on to that, after class, I've had professors occasionally come up to me and actually initiate a conversation about something that maybe I said in the lecture or in the discussion or something, or just even something completely irrelevant. And to have a professor approach me and want to talk to me about something is extremely key, I think, to building a relationship like that with your student. And I know that every professor that's ever done that with me, I don't really utilize office hours much, but those specific professors, I would feel extremely comfortable with going to their office hours, and I wouldn't mind at all.
Anybody else got anything to add?
I was gonna say I should probably practice what I preach because I've never been to office hours. But that's usually because my professors are already one-on-one with me. But some of the professors for my core classes, I would say that if they would start a conversation, be willing to do that, or as they're speaking in front of everyone, reminding them that they have office hours and that they're willing to talk, or be a little relaxed about it, and so they're not so freaked out, and so they'll have that chance to break the ice, like Kate was talking about, that one time where they'll just be like, oh, well, I guess it's not so bad. I should do this with all my professors, kind of thing.
Maybe if they did a tap dance or something at the beginning of class, they would seem more approachable. You think?
No. I would avoid that.
Anybody else want to add on to that?
Well, I would say that Erica's suggestion of not keeping your door closed all the time is a good one. If I have to knock on your door, it's kind of like trying to see if there's a dragon on the other side.
Might feel a little bit disturbing.
It's a little scary.
We have another question from the audience. Don't be shy. Go right ahead. You can stand or sit, your choice.
I'm first time TA and maybe teaching biology. So as a master's student with a concentration in cardiovascular physiology, it's like I'm already a science nerd. So like I can at least be cool. So going into the situation, do students prefer if your teacher is more have a friendlier relationship, kind of down to earth, kind of engage you a lot more, or is it better to kind of have that strict boundary between student and teacher? Although I'm only a couple of years older than they are, I'm not sitting where they are, but I'm still your teacher. So do you prefer cool teachers or teachers?
Nikolai?
Okay, so to answer that, I prefer cool teachers that still do their job. So what I mean by that, I talked about my drawing class earlier. My drawing TA was not super, there wasn't that much of an age difference between her and I. And yet I still knew, even though I was like, I could see us being friends, I still knew, she was the teacher, and she took the grades, took attendance, and she was strict with things like turning in projects late and doing that. And that kind of doing her job role was what indicated to me that she was the teacher. But at the same time, she was very personal. She loved to engage the students. She loved to give feedback. And she was a very cool person. But so, I don't know, that's how I would answer it. You can be cool, but still do your job at the same time. You can do both, yes. It's not an, and or, you can do both of them at the same time.
Anybody else want to add on to that? Erica, go ahead.
I think there really should be a balance. I absolutely agree. I think the teacher or TA or whoever should really establish their authority to the students so they know who they are, but they definitely shouldn't like create this wall between the students either. You still want to be able to talk to them and have a conversation without being afraid of them judging you or grading you, even if though you're talking small talk. But there definitely should be that authority there because they do need to know that you are the teacher and you are giving them their grade. And you are like teaching them, you're their mentor. So you don't want to let them take advantage of you. And I actually, this fall, I saw Dr. Ligon teach, or he was doing one of the breakout sessions for our seminar, and he said something similar to that effect about making sure that you have a good relationship with your students, but not too much of a relationship. You know, you still want to have some sort of a separation of student-teacher.
Ben?
I actually think, kind of like Nikolai was saying, the technicalities are almost enough to kind of create that authority, though. Just like the mere fact that you take attendance every day or regularly, semi-regularly, or that you, maybe you grade slightly stricter than some other professors or something, is enough to create kind of an authority like figure. But really, in the way that you act toward the students, I think that can almost always be just personable and friendly, because like, especially in philosophy, I like to almost feel as an equal to my professor, because that opens up the possibility for like discussion and like critical discussion, because I feel like I need that in my classes, like the ability to propose something as if it really matters.
Well, I'm sad to report that we are out of time, but I want to thank the audience for being here and for listening to this very honest feedback. What you all have to say is very important to us, so thank you, students, for being here and sharing yourselves with us.